mixing drums properly and getting that fat drum sound is really sought after between producers. Today we are going to take a look at 7 steps that turns these drums into this. If we generalize the dynamics of the sound really hard, there exist really 3 types of sounds. Number 1, transient sounds. Number 2, sustained sounds. And number 3, fat sounds. Step number 2, eliminating common problems. Before watching this video, if you haven't seen the previous video where I build these drums, I strongly suggest to watch that video before you watching this one. There are always recurring problems in drums, so it's good to eliminate those problems at the beginning before you really dive deep into the mixing. Let's play the before mixing part. First common issue that you will see in the drums is the placement of the kick and the clap. So if you solo kick and clap hits exactly the same time. The easiest solution for this one is just using a channel delay. You can just toggle it here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to slightly bring the clap before the kick. We're going to pull this down. This is more than enough. It just helps de-aligning the clap transient from the kick transient. Other classic problem would be with your hats. So you see that the closed hat is very transient and open hat is sustained. The easiest solution to mix them properly, go to your open hat and give a little bit of fade in, so you kind of create space right here for your closed hat. And you should do this fade in while you are playing so that you can hear the effect exactly. Something like this. Now we already solved the issue with these two. And other common problem could be unwanted frequencies in some sounds. So I'm going to go to claps, bring in an EQ. Do you see this area? We really don't need that. So we are going to do an high pass here. So I'm losing a bit energy here, but boosting lightly where I cut off makes it a bit attenuated and gives it this nice character. You can do the similar thing to our other high-end sounds. Great, that was it. Putting the drums into a space. At the moment, our drums are very dry. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a room return. Right click, insert return track, just put a reverb on return channel and send a lot of claps there and solo it. Bring decay down, bring stereo and bring the size and make it high quality. And I'm going to open this up slightly, but I'm going to introduce low cut. Of course, it should be 100% wet, but while you are designing, you can always bring down and see how actually it fits with the original sound. And then I'm gonna just put an EQ just to make sure that we don't mud here. You can control it over here as well, but I'm just doing it so it's more clear for you. And now we're gonna start signing stuff there to put the percussions into the same room. For the hi-hats, you can either sign it separately or you can send a group. What I like to do, first slightly sign as a group. And then the open hi-hat, I want to send it a bit more there. We saw the return now. You should be able to hear this other room sound coming. And then we go to our percussion group. I'm doing it slight subtle. Finally, the organics. When it comes to colors, I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to create another reverb. It's a bigger and more energetic version of the reverb that we created. This one, I'm going to just call it whole. The length-wise, it should be between 1.5 to 2.5. Let's go for something 1.8. Again, I'm going to put it half wet while I'm designing it, sanding the colors, soloing it. This one, I'm going to have it slightly dark. I'm going to keep the size big. It's a very rich sound, right? Very like clubby sound. So keeping it a little bit bigger is a good idea. So let's try that now. We have also a little bit effects here. We can see if we can send any of them. This could definitely use those big splash ride stuff. So it gives a bit natural tail. We have a noise here. Maybe a little bit. Let's try with the track. Bring it back now. We have snare here. This one should be smaller because otherwise it's splashed too much. It's slight excitement. So now we put everything into a space. Number 4. Dynamic mixing. The reason that we start with dynamic mixing rather than static mixing is drums are by default dynamic. So hence starting with dynamic mix makes much more sense. The clap sound may occupy the same area with your shaker sound. Do you hear it? What I would often do is just sidechain the shaker so that when the clap hits, we duck the shakers a little bit. Very simple, compression, sidechain to the clap group. Shaker almost creates an extra groove because of that ducking. The second thing is low percussions and the color synths. So in this case, we have these percussions, remember? What I'm going to do first is distort a little bit so that I have a bit more harmonics. Add a utility to gain compensate. This one, you will see, is actually kind of in the same area like this one.
Feel that bass.
Especially this warm synth. Easy solution for this one, multi-band sidechain, or in this case I'm going to use actually suit, simply because I want to show that the capability exists with the suit. I'm going to go to colors, go to steps, take suit, first sidechain, perks, and then here the suit has sidechain option. We're going to turn that on.
Feel that bass.
So whenever the percussions hit, the suit will duck those frequencies inside the Juno sound. So this is what is incoming signal.
Bring it back now.
This just helps hearing the percussions nicely. Other very common trick is we have the vocals here.
Feel that bass.
We want to have the vocals right in the front. So what I'm going to do, go back to my step. This time I'm going to introduce Pro MB, again sidechain mode. So I want to duck all this area, right? So this is much more aggressive sidechain than suit. Without.
Feel that bass.
Okay.
Feel that bass.
Another very useful case of frequency sidechain is actually cymbals and hats. Now cymbals and hats are exactly in the same frequency, more or less. So if we put the hats, cymbals are very high pitched. So I'm going to just really take this area when the cymbal hits. Those cymbals are just pushed in the front. And the final sidechain will be that drum rolls here. We want to duck the hats a little bit in that area that the snare hits. Together. Right there. Number 5, static mixing. Once we are done with the dynamic mixing, we can actually think about static mixing now. The first thing that I want to actually slightly take a look at is the hats and shakers here. I'm going to start with open hat and shakers because these two are the biggest ones. Simple EQ on both of them. So what you need to do is actually decide which part of the hat compared to shaker you can decrease down a little bit. Here. Or here. The separation is more clear now with the hats and the shakers. If we go to organics, we have this sound. Let's add the hats. We see that open hat and those organics has a little bit problem. It's mainly sitting here. Nice, right? Now we hear everything, really. Static mixing is really subtle without too much damaging the original sound so that we can still hear this excitement of the original sounds. Number 6, fattening with parallel processing. This is the part, it's a bit more advanced and could be a bit confusing for you if it is the first time you see this. What we are going to do first, create a return channel. Introduce a glue compression. The main idea is just going to crash the dynamics of the sound. So I'm going to solo this and I'm going to start sanding stuff from different parts of the track. We're kind of making a soup. You can either sand everything, but I'm going to be a bit more picky. I'm going to sand first a bit claps, then hats. So I'm going to add this a bit mid-high end area.
Bring it back now.
What we're going to do is bring the threshold down and crush to the depth. Then we are going to do actually a override. The good thing with this type of distortion is actually you can decide the color with the tone here. It will be very handy when we decide what type of color we are going to add later on. Then I'm going to add a slight reverb on top of that. It will even flatten out everything. And then we're going to introduce EQ just to shape the sound. And now this is a flat sound. We want to introduce the groove. Just take a compression, put it to the kick, slow attack, slow release type of stuff. Now, at the moment, I just created the backbone, but we have to decide with the track how much we are actually gonna send. It's hard to play with the sends afterwards. I would rather prefer playing with the volume of drum chain. Now it turns into that very old school, very crushed, very distorted sound, right? And what I also like to do is actually playing around with sculpting the sound, increase the clarity a little bit more. If you want to enhance the stereo field a little bit here, there's one more trick. You introduce one more EQ, mid-side mode, and go to sides, cut a little bit from the bottom end of the sides. The classic, traditional, gorgeous, distorted house sound, you get it this way. Final piece is gluing and coloring. So in the gluing purposes, I actually separate kick from the drums because I feel like in electronic dance music, kick actually belongs to the low end. Hence, I separate the kick and my group is here. Depending on the sound, I think this track actually doesn't need too much because everything sounds really glued, but I'm going to show it anyway. So what you need to do is introduce kind of a glue compression and get this slightly pumping even in the drum group. So if we solo this, you want to bring the attack a bit down because we don't want to really cut those transients. And then you want to introduce a type of a coloring EQ. A lot of people kind of use pull text and so on, but I'm going to just use the channel EQ. If you want to give an air, for example, get this very crispy high end. The reason it's called coloring and gluing is just basically processing everything to fit kind of the same color palette. So without.
Bring it back now.
It's quite subtle. If you have a bit more separated drums, actually you can go a bit more aggressive here, but in this case we have very glued drums here, so it's will be really overkill.